The big event is now just days away, and an International Olympic Committee panel will soon make a final ruling on which Russian athletes will be allowed to compete in the Summer Games in Rio. It's the latest development in the doping scandal that has led to the exclusion of more than 100 Russian athletes connected to state-sponsored cheating. For more, we're joined on the KCBS Ring Central Newsline by CBS correspondent Steve Futterman, who is in Rio. Steve, thanks for joining us today. So what is the anticipation of what's going to happen here with these Russian athletes?
Well, it looks like some of the Russian athletes, and maybe a large number, will be given clearance. Remember, more than 100 have already been disqualified. They will not compete, including some big names. But there are around 200, 250 others who are going through this other process where the IOC, the Court for Arbitration for Sport, and these particular sports federations are determining whether these athletes should be allowed to compete. It's a very complicated, long, tedious process. We thought we would have some results maybe as soon as today, but it looks like it may be another day. Obviously, they have to have a decision by Friday.
Now, you've been there a couple of days, as I understand it. What have your impressions been so far about the city's readiness for all of this?
I mean, I think they're basically ready. We know the water is a big problem and an embarrassing problem, but these events are going to take place. The venues are essentially ready right now. There are things that maybe aren't quite finished, maybe not, the I's are not dotted, the T's aren't crossed in some cases, but for the most part, things are ready. I think once the games begin, things like the water, the Zika, the economic problems will be put to the side and we'll be focusing on the events themselves. But certainly there have been problems.
Well, the water currently is getting more play than the Zika here, anyway. The Zika seems to have faded.
The water is a serious problem and an embarrassing problem. You know, the officials here, when they got the Olympics, Rio officials said they would take care of the water, and frankly, they have not. Now, we are not going to have athletes who die from this. We are told they may get some infections. There could be some sores, which is pretty serious stuff. But they are going to compete. Some athletes are complaining about it. Obviously, they don't like it, but they still want to be in the Olympics. So they're really faced with a tough choice. And most of them are going ahead and will compete in the dirty water. You know, we're talking about the sailors, the rowers, some marathon swimmers, some of the triathletes. They're going to have to compete in this dirty water.
I saw the mayor of Rio being interviewed, and he was saying essentially, well, you know, we're an imperfect city. We have a lot of problems. And I was thinking to myself, why did you lobby so hard for the Olympics then if you had all of these problems?
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, I think IOC officials are re-examining. It was a risk to give it to Rio. Like I said, I think in the end, when the games finish, unless there are really complications that we don't expect, and you know that includes the potential for terrorism, which obviously no one wants, and is a concern at every Olympics. But if we get through these Olympics without any major problems beyond what we've been talking about now, I think in the end people will say, oh, these were good games, they worked out well. But this has been a struggle to get to this point, no doubt about that. And IOC officials are not happy that they have to answer questions every day from people like me about water, Zika, the economic downturn, the political turmoil. Everything is an issue.
And it's winter there, right? What are the weather conditions going to be like for the athletes?
Well, I love the weather here right now. It is winter, but temperatures mid-70s, sometimes low 80s. So the weather seems to be good right now. That's one good thing. Let's compliment Rio on the weather.
All right, we can do that. We'll be generous. Thanks as always for joining us. We've been talking on the CBS Ring Central Newsline with CBS correspondent Steve Futterman, who is in Rio for the Olympic Games.